On this edition of Artico, learn about a major yet fairly unknown player in the Cuban Revolution. Find out where you can learn to make paper and create great music, no studio required. And that's just the half of it on the best art show in the DMV. Artico, coming up next. The second play in Arena Stage's 2021-22 season is Celia and Fidel. The story imagines a fight between Cuba's most influential revolutionary and most powerful political leader.
When people come to see the production, they will see not only the story of Fidel and Celia, they will get a really strong piece of history, and that piece of history is happening right now. Audiences will remember 1980 Mariela boat lift. It was a time of a great crisis in Cuba when people went to the Peruvian embassy and wanted to leave. They wanted to run away from Cuba, to get out from under the repressive government. And so it's a story of what happens in the clash between Fidel and Celia about what to do. It is the best time to do Celia and Fidel in this moment, because for those of you who read the newspapers, in July of this year, there was a huge revolution in Cuba. People took to the streets, and they took to the streets because of an incredible song called Patria y Vida, which is country or life, which is the opposition of what Castro used to say, which was country or death. And the people came out to the streets in the same way they did with the Mariela boat lift.
This is my opinion from the research I have done, that if Celia wouldn't have been around organizing everything for Fidel Castro, the revolution, the Cuban Revolution would have not happened. Hi, my name is Marian Licha, and I play Celia Sanchez in Celia and Fidel. Celia Sanchez was the organizer of the Cuban Revolution, even though she's not officially the organizer, and she didn't want to be. She rather worked in the background, and but she was really the person behind the revolution. And she did not get credit for it. It was a male-dominated society, and she didn't care to get credit for what she did in the revolution. She was also the first female soldier in the revolution, and she organized women to fight in the revolution.
Don't talk to me. I want to sit and listen. Like when the Soviets came and offered us the moon, and they thought I was just your secretary. Talk about machismo. You charmed them, and I listened to everything they said and told you when they were trying to cheat us. What a smile. I've not seen a smile like that from you in a long time.
Well, I like to play strong women, and she certainly was one. And I certainly, when I heard that Molly Smith was directing and that Eduardo Machado was going to be the playwright, I was in right away.
Eduardo Machado, who is the playwright of Celia and Fidel, is from Cuba. He spent his childhood in Cuba. There are very few people, writers, who have chosen to write about Fidel Castro, and no one who is writing about Celia Sanchez. But to actually see someone on stage portray him as a human being with all of his foibles, with his sexiness, with his passion, with his cruelty, with his anger, with his intensity, is pretty thrilling.
You two are a regular comedy act.
Anything else?
Just for you to listen to what Manolo spoke to Washington about.
Why does she need to hear what Washington told me?
I value her opinion, and Celia is...
Gone. Now. And he needs a witness.
All right.
As a director, one of the most powerful parts of the play for me is the whole idea that people move revolutions. And we're in the part of that now in the United States. We are a part of that now in all the revolutions that are happening all over the country, whether it's in Nicaragua or Cuba. And the people are speaking. And so I think it's a powerful play for right now because this is also a play about a dictator. What audiences have to look forward to at Arena Stage is a whole season of champagne and soul. So next up is 7 Guitars by August Wilson, who is America's Shakespeare. Then we have another power play called Change Agent. Step Africa is coming in later with their brilliant production of Drum Folk. I will be directing a new production of a play and a musical that people probably saw as a film or maybe read as a book, and that's Catch Me If You Can. And we have lots and lots of projects that people need to come in and see at Arena Stage, including, moving into the summertime, American Prophet, which is Frederick Douglass becoming a prophet. And it is a musical. All of the music in it, the lyrics come almost directly from his speeches. And if there's any time when we need the voice of Frederick Douglass, it's right now.
It's been 20 years since Irina and Pata Sikurishvili brought the dynamic art form of physical theater to Arlington, Virginia. They met and studied in their home country of Georgia. Irina was a ballerina and Pata studied film directing and acting.
When we met back in Soviet times in Georgia, so we were kids, okay? And then we promised each other that one day we will manage to go in America and have our own theater company. So it's quite a moving story for us. Physical theater can be also interpreted many different ways. It can be just strictly mind-based. It can be one-man show, two-man shows, or it can be just acrobatic-based. You express your ideas, thoughts, you narrate, you build a storyline. It's through physical means and through visuals, including text, no text. It's synthesis of the arts, I would say. I would say we also carry through us the traditional, I would say, culture of physical theater, which has deep roots in Caucasus region.
Sonetic Theater made its artistic debut with the first wordless Shakespeare production. It was called Hamlet, The Rest is Silence. The audience was thrilled with the play's athleticism and high-voltage physical theater.
Mostly our signature is do Shakespeare without words.
14 wordless Shakespeare we have accomplished.
Yeah.
And last one was Richard III. No, Richard 3.0, that's how we call it, because it was kind of cyberpunk style. We are company-based. The success we are achieving because we have the company. And then we have actors, even founding actors, company members, following us for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, you name it. I think also this is not a common thing in this country to have the theater company with a troupe, with ensemble, that we work together all the time.
We are multicultural, theater, which is language, it's not important for us.
During the rehearsals, you can hear 3 or 4 different languages suddenly popping up here and there. So. Right now we are at attack at the current play, Madness of Edgar Allan Poe. We call it Madness of Poe. It basically is a fusion of Raven and a little bit some other stories, and the central is the Fall of the House of Usher. And we build production around not just following the scripts, but we try to find out what happened with Poe before he wrote any words. So what kind of experience he's getting through emotionally, what expressions, like internal expressions, he's imagining in his head. I think it's very entertaining production. It's very emotional, moving. I would say sometimes maybe might be a terrifying thing, beautifully disturbing. And it has its own attraction, I believe. So what we've learned during the pandemic was that, like, okay, how otherwise we can express ourselves as an actors if we don't have it a stage. We do have capability, and that we are able to perform on the street, perform any place you want, on the building, on the roof. In 5 years we will be able to build the infrastructure where we also can establishing touring around the world, especially when we talk about Shakespeare without words is accessible everywhere. We are very proud to say that to be premier physical theater, maybe not just only this region, but in the country.
Strolling through Tacoma Park, Maryland these days, you may come upon a pleasant surprise, Sidewalks featuring poetry from local residents, part of an interactive public art project organized by the city's Arts and Humanities Division.
So this project started actually a couple years ago. I had gone up to Minneapolis for an Americans for the Arts convention and went over to St. Paul. And they actually had originated this project. An artist named Marcus Young came up with the idea, and with a group called Public Art St. Paul, and I thought it was super exciting and just a great way to share poetry by local residents with the community, so outside where they are. And so we held a contest. We actually had over 100 submissions from local poets. Every poem is by a local poet aged 6 to seniors. We actually have a Tacoma Park Poet Laureate, and so she and a couple other poets picked 10 adults and 10 kids as the winners. The selection committee tried to pick a wide range of the poems, some that are kind of funny or whimsical, some that are more serious. So now, when there's new sidewalk construction, we are stamping them into the concrete, which is actually fairly low tech. We just have a crew push it down, and then we actually have a guy walk over the top of it to press it firmly into the concrete while it's curing. So then the letters are deeply imprinted and should be there for years.
One of the winners is Emily Cumbay. Here is an excerpt from another one of her poems. This one is called Black Jesus.
Jesus died the way most black boys do, his hands white flags in the air screaming surrender to the law, and yet still died red. That night Mary anointed his head in oil, because every black mother knows ash is the language of the dead. Do you remember how they hung him like the strange fruit he was? Blood blowing in the southern breeze, staining the poplar tree turned cross. Ain't it funny how no one said Jesus was just in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Right now it's a little bit about coming upon them, but if we are working on a map that we'll put on the city's website at tacomaparkmd.gov/arts. And there's also a link to the project there, which includes the addresses. So you can go there and find all the addresses. I guess I'd like to thank the City of Tacoma Park's Arts Humanities Commission. It's a total volunteer group which helps city staff on arts projects, and then also the Mayor, Kate Stewart, and the City Council for their support.
This poem is for all the Mother Marys, because their stories aren't in the dying, they're in the rising. They have taught us the biggest miracle of all, enduring the greatest suffering and still surviving.
Pyramid Atlantic Arts Center is an exciting artist hub that fosters the artistic disciplines of papermaking, printmaking, and book arts. They offer shared facilities for artists to do their work, and it all happens in historic Hyattsville, Maryland.
I first came to Pyramid Atlantic many years ago to learn non-toxic printmaking because I was teaching printmaking at Howard University. and wanted to change the studio over to a non-toxic printmaking studio. So I learned some very valuable things here.
I've been working with Pyramid, I was first introduced to Pyramid when it was originally in Prince George's County in Riverdale, and I learned letterpress printing there. And now here in Hyattsville, another rediscovery, and finally having an exhibit with them. So it's a lovely experience that I've grown with Pyramid.
Specifically, we focus on papermaking, printmaking, and book arts. So the equipment we have here is often very antique. It's often very big. It requires a lot to maintain. So we're able to provide it to the community. We do about 200 workshops each year for adults. We also do individual instruction. So if people want to learn something specific or really want to tackle a specific project, they can book time with us for one-on-one. So an instructor works with them to see their concept or reality. We also offer residencies and internships and lots of access points to people who are looking to really focus on art. So in addition to our community studios where we do the shared equipment, we also have 17 private artist studios where 24 artists work on their own projects behind their own closed door. And we also have an art gallery. And our art gallery features about 8 exhibitions a year. We try to tie it into printmaking, papermaking, and book arts, but it's not exclusive.
This piece here was something that I created when my mom passed during the creation of this project with these 8 other amazing women that I've been working with.
This piece is from a installation titled The First Wave of the Third Millennium. And I felt as if Black people needed protection. And so I decided to create protection pieces, which these are.
I chose to make a box, although it doesn't look like a box. My box is a ship-shaping box. And she said, let's get out of the box. So of course my box opened up. The story here is We the Coffee. So it's an old internet or sermon, I'm not sure what, but it came to me and it's the story of, I've changed it. It's the story now of a mother and a daughter, and the daughter goes to the mother and says, I'm in hot water, what am I going to do? And the mother says, be the coffee. Don't be the carrot, because the hotter the water, the carrot goes limp. Don't be the egg, because the hotter the water, the egg gets hard and forms a shell around it. Be the coffee. So, the hotter the water, the stronger the coffee.
We believe that doing things with your hand has a lot of meaning. It makes the artwork more meaningful, and it's good for people to get their hands dirty. So in addition to printmaking, we do papermaking. And that, again, is a really dirty process. You gotta put on your galoshes, you gotta wear gloves and an apron, and get ready to get a little dirty and a little bit wet in the studios. But there's so many possibilities with papermaking that you might not anticipate. Book arts is also sort of our third discipline that we get really excited about. And certainly we can help people bind books or make fancy covers for books, but what really gets us excited are handmade books, artisan-made original books. And today, when we're sitting here, we actually have beautiful examples of artist-made books in our gallery.
This was my page within the book, and I pretty much dedicated it to John Lewis, as he had just passed away at the time. I was creating the book, and it represents Sunday, Bloody Sunday, and his walk across the Pettus Bridge.
And even though we've only been in Hyattsville since 2016, Pyramid Atlantic is actually 40 years old this year. So our next exhibition, our 40th anniversary exhibition, starts September 17th and runs through November. We'll be showing 40 pieces for the 40 years that we've been around, and I'm really looking forward to it. There are some artists in our collection that we worked with who did work here who have, since their time here, really achieved some national and international acclaim. So it's going to be great to see work by Joyce Scott that was done 25 years ago, work by Hung Lu that was done 25 years ago, that sort of is coming out of a bit of a time capsule in our archive. So I hope you'll join us for that as well.
PG County native Alicia Reynolds has been singing her entire life. Her talents partly an inheritance from her family. With the help of her producer husband, Jamil, she's been making music and performing professionally for about 7 years, turning melodies and harmonies into what her husband calls a soulful hug.
What I create is called vocal looping, where I take a melody to a song and then I just harmonize with that melody. Most of my music is just my voice for the most part. There might be some instrumentation in there, but for the most part it's just about like using my voice as the instrument. So I would say more a cappella and soul.
Her music is just so warm, and the thing about it is she's very honest in her music, and because of the texture and the timbre of her voice, you can feel everything. You can feel all of the notes, all of the emotions.
So soul music, I feel like has always been like in my blood for as long as I can remember. Even when I think about my parents singing and my mother, again, my grandmother, they were singing gospel music. And for the most part, you know, so you learn a lot about like harmonizing and things like that, especially in the old church where they didn't have a piano, they just used their voice. They just used their voice to harmonize with one another, to use your hands to keep the tempo, their feet. And so I love that the music that they were creating was with their whole body. So the first project I put out was actually a single that my husband produced for me to kind of get me out of my shell. I was really nervous. And so he showed me that it is possible to create music without having to book, you know, studio sessions and things like that.
And I have to remind her and tell her that you have an amazing voice, you have an amazing talent, and the world wants to hear your voice. The world wants to hear your stories and your ideas. And so that takes a little effort, a little change and, you know, challenge. But once she's comfortable, she does her thing. She goes in the studio, she goes in the lab as we call it, and she just creates. And she gives me the raw materials, and then I try to refine it, whether it's adding instrumentation to it or I just mix and master her vocals.
And I use my voice to create the music, the backgrounds, even like the horns, the sound of the horns, like just using my voice. And what I really discovered was that I didn't need all I thought I needed to create art. Like I realized that the little things that I did have, the gift that I already had in me, was enough. My first whole EP was just a collection of cover songs that I really enjoyed. So I'd covered a few songs like Bob Marley's Is This Love, Donny Hathaway's Someday We'll All Be Free, just songs that really inspired me. I believe that collaboration is everything. It's key when creating art. And one of my favorite collaborators is actually my husband. Without him, I would not be creating music. I thought that I had to raise money to be able to pay for studio sessions. I thought I had to get signed by a label to be taken seriously as an artist. And my husband actually created beats in his bedroom. Like he produced albums. So when we actually came together, he was trying to help me pursue my own dream with singing. But I gave up on it because I figured I wasn't, you know, I didn't have the look, I didn't have the sound that they were really looking for. And so he showed me that I actually didn't need those people, those gatekeepers, to produce the music that I wanted to create. I could do it on my own.
Alicia Reynolds can be very, very shy. And so she has a lot of ideas and a lot of things that she wants to produce, but she can have, I guess what's called imposter syndrome. And so I kind of have to goad her along of like, you're actually very good at what you do.
I also created music talking about some of the dark places in my life. I was going through a friend breakup, and I really needed to express these feelings besides just, you know, writing in a journal. Like I wanted to put it on track, and so I actually accidentally made an EP from being brokenhearted from losing friends.
And I have to remind her and tell her that you have an amazing voice, you have an amazing talent, and the world wants to hear your voice. The world wants to hear your stories and your ideas. And so that takes a little effort, a little change and, you know, challenge. But once she's comfortable, she does her thing. She goes in the studio, she goes in the lab as we call it, and she just creates. And she gives me the raw materials, and then I try to refine it, whether it's adding instrumentation to it or I just mix and master her vocals.
Why you gotta go? to go now.
So that's the project called Matter, because at the end of the day, what I wanted people to take away from the project is that they matter. No matter how many people have thrown you away, how many people have discarded you, broken your heart, like you still matter. Like your art matters, your story matters, and there's a reason why you're still here. I'm actually working on more music now where I'm going to be looping. I'm layering my voice on top of each other to create songs that encourage people and that can be used for affirmations.
You're not lazy, you're just tired as hell. Lay down, darling, treat your body well.
For me, I honestly think my wife has the ability to be like this age or this generation's Nina Simone because of the talent that she has, but also her willingness to be able to communicate so much raw and vulnerable perspectives that I think, you know, Lady Simone was able to do. You know, she was able to communicate such deep, heartfelt things, and I feel like my wife can do the same.
People can find me performing online on YouTube, where I'm actually live streaming and I'm actually creating music on the fly in real time. In the future, my hope is to take my music on the road in our RV to do pop-up shows around the country where other people can come and share their music and their art and their experiences, and people can come out and enjoy these artists that may not be heard on the radio or like in live venues, but they can still have a fun time and support artists that are actually creating art that matters.
Well, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed today's show as much as we enjoyed preparing it for you. Until next time, always remember to follow your art.